Hey there, I'm Michael Bovee. Thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel where I talk about all things debt and credit. Today I'm going to be covering a specific lender like I often do on my channel so that people can understand when they hit the debt wall, when they're no longer able to keep up with payments with Upstart, a loan that you take out from Upstart has a few options that you can explore, okay? Let me be clear. Lenders like this, they don't really participate in lower interest monthly payments. Like if you had a credit card bank, Chase for example, and you owe them 10 grand and your interest rate is 23%, you can talk to them, or if they won't talk to you about it, they'll work with you through a nonprofit credit counseling agency to lower your interest rate. Maybe they lower it to say 6% for the example here. So you go from the 20s down to 6%, that immediately makes your monthly payment more affordable. Well, these marketplace lenders like Upstart typically don't participate in those kinds of programs. Not for the life of the loan like Chase would for a 5-year payback, no longer than 5 years usually, on that credit card. Upstart, no, not gonna happen. They actually weren't even giving people 1, 2, or 3 months of lower payments, but recently they started doing that. So first step, and this is usually the case with any lender, not just Upstart. If you are struggling to meet your obligation, talk to them. Speak with them and find out what it is that they offer, because they could be on the cusp of changing some of their policies and terms and suddenly be able to do something like that. I don't anticipate it, not with that particular marketplace lender, but it could happen, right? So talking to them, and if certainly, absolutely, if your situation is one where, man, I'm going to be fine next month. I just had all these unexpected things happen to me this month. Or I'll be fine in 2 months, because Upstart will work with you usually. If you haven't had to have some kind of setback before where they worked with you to lower your monthly payment a couple of months in a row, they might do it again. Or they might do it the first time. So talk to them about that. Second is sometimes it just is what it is. You can't pay them, you don't pay them. And when that decision is made for you, it's just really not a decision. It's just a life circumstance. Now you might need to understand what to do about that debt. Upstart, they make smaller loans. You know, they make really big loans too. I think upwards of 35K is where they cap out at. Maybe it's larger with Upstart. I think it's more like 45K. But larger loans are harder to deal with. Smaller loans are something that, you know, if you're having a brief setback and get back on track, that's feasible. If you have a minimum payment on 35K, maybe not as feasible. And so you look at it, it's like, well, long term, what am I going to do about that 35K? You might want to know about Upstart's collection and recovery policies and procedures. Here we go. So you know about a temporary kind of hardship, no long term. If you stop paying Upstart long enough, you can usually negotiate a settlement. Now, the settlements vary, and sometimes it's just who we are, right? And how we look on paper, how collectible we're viewed. So if you are not paying on a 5K Upstart loan, and on your credit report, you're keeping up with your minimums on a 10K Discover, 7,500 City, you know, your mortgage and your car are paid on time and all your student loans, but Upstart's getting short shrift. I mean, think about it. Why would you want to give somebody a discount when it seems like they can keep all those other plates in the air? Or at least you're probably not going to give them your steepest discount, right? Just logic. So some of us have to do settlements a little differently than others, and that can be a mitigating factor in how low you go, right? But the timeline is usually not that different, right? So whether you owe $1,500 or $15,000 to Upstart, if you fall late and you go past 120 days late, they're typically going to do one of two things with your account. I talk about this in other videos, and I definitely talk about it one-on-one with people when they schedule a consult with me. By the way, if you have trouble with Upstart, you know, maybe you just need this video. You don't need to talk to somebody, or you don't need anybody's help, because it's just one thing. But if you have more than one thing, I usually advise getting some advice real time. I can go over your situation, your creditors, and say, well, here's the way I would lay this out, because this one's going to be a little bit more of a priority, or you need the money for this one quicker than you need the money for that one, and this is all going to take you 18 months or 30 months, right? And how do you connect all of that? How do you orchestrate that process? That's a little different than this one-off dealing with Upstart, right? So if you want, you can schedule time with me. There's a link in the description below to my calendar. Just pull it up, find a time that works for you. It'll be me that calls you. Legitimately, it is me that calls. And we'll go over your situation and your goals, and I'll tell you what I would do in your situation. But back to Upstart. So at 4 months, 120 days, they have an accounting function that they have to comply with. It's called charge off. They charge your account off. That means they have to account for it as a loss on their books. And that's when most lenders, not all, but most, will subject your account to its external collection policies and procedures. At the time of this recording, Upstart's policy and procedure is to do one of two things. There's only 3 buckets. They do 2 of them. The 3 buckets are contingency collectors, all bark, no bite. They write to you, they call you, they try and get you to pay. If they're successful, they get paid themselves. If they're unsuccessful, they get nothing. In fact, they wasted money. Stamps, personnel time, infrastructure costs, right? And then second bucket is debt buyers. Third bucket are collection law firms. Upstart currently, and I don't think ever, has sent directly to law firms. They typically are going to place your account with an external third-party collection agency. I've actually seen them do it a little earlier than 120 days sometimes. Maybe they're overwhelmed and don't want to hire more personnel or whatever. But there's a whole infrastructure. It's the largest collection bucket in the country, contingency collectors. I like them. Most people don't want to deal with collectors, but if you're trying to resolve a debt, debt collection agencies are a perfect place to do that with. They're motivated. They want to get paid too, right? And so I find them easier to work with than some of the other buckets, and sometimes easier to work with than a particular creditor. And you might prefer to work with that creditor, but they don't go very low. And this isn't for Upstart, but other ones, right? So collectors are a big, big part of a lot of people's debt settlement solution. Embrace it, right? They're part of your solution. The second bucket are debt buyers. And Upstart does this in spades. They sell a lot of debt to debt buyers. And these debt buyers really, when I first started doing this kind of work in the late 90s and the early aughts, there were close to 1,000 members of the DBA, the Debt Buyers Association. Today, of consequence for a debt like Upstart, there's probably only the potential for a couple of dozen debt buyers to get that account. And really, there's only probably about 6 that I continuously see. And all of them behave a little bit differently, and they also have some similarities. When you're dealing with a debt buyer on your Upstart loan, the main thing to think about is math. And I try to do this, and I'll do this with you on a phone call if we end up talking together, or in the comments. You're welcome to post in the comments what's going on, what your questions are. I answer those every day, 7 days a week with my morning coffee. If I can help you strictly in the comments, I'm happy to. You're helping me help other people when you post down there, because other folks read those comments, they'll read our exchange, and they'll get helpful tips and advice without having to post themselves. Some people are just, they don't post. So if you're a poster, post away, I'll answer you. But the math of the matter is usually going to dictate your behavior, right? If you can come up with enough money to settle your $1,500 or $15,000 Upstart loan directly with Upstart, that's a good time. This is one of those creditors where it wouldn't hurt to talk to them about it. If you're not going to be able to do that and you're going to have to deal with a collection agency or a debt buyer, we need to talk about your priorities over other accounts. Debt buyers especially can become a longer-term solution for resolving an Upstart loan, because most of the debt buyers that buy this stuff, all debt buyers sue. They're all aggressive. And so that makes you go like, oh my God, I don't want that to happen. But yeah, you kind of do, because if you need more time to pay a settlement, that's often where you're going to get that time, right? So you get a Crown Asset Management or a Velocity Investment LLC. I've got a video up about Velocity. Maybe I'll do Crown Asset next, since I called them out in this video. But these debt buyers, and there's others obviously, they're pretty accommodating. They may not talk to you directly. They may have it out with another collection agency, just like Upstart might have used or other banks use, right? But they're open to discounts and payment plans on those discounts. And so a lot of times somebody's debt settlement path isn't just Upstart, it's that and 9 other accounts or 4 other accounts. And the fact that you can get an account settled with a debt buyer, that it's not going to go to an attorney because, yeah, they sue, but if you negotiate with them quick enough, you can prevent that from happening. In fact, anybody with a consistent flow of income that I can map out their math ahead of time for, say, the next 24-ish months, 30 months, you don't have to get sued. You can actually eliminate all of that risk. And that's the same here with Upstart. So The math is going to dictate when you try to do something and how long you can do it for. Math changes. So you might start off on something barely late. You made a decision that you couldn't pay them anymore because other things are coming up, and inflation and this and that and job loss or health or whatever. And okay, I got this map, I'm going to do this. And then your income drops even further. You have even more unexpected expenses. And that can derail anybody's plan, but you work with the math that you have, that you can project. And sometimes you want to make sure that you leave yourself a cushion. And again, that is an option when you're dealing with debt buyers. Now, I should take this to its conclusion, and it's an unfortunate one for those that this happens to. So Upstart may not send you directly to a law firm for collection. They sell it to a debt buyer, and they might, given enough time. And sometimes it doesn't take some of these debt buyers to think about doing that. So once your account with Upstart goes to a collection law firm, the law firm is the one that's going to typically be driving the bus on what's going to happen for resolution of that account. They might have gotten some parameters from whoever sent them the account saying, yeah, you can take settlements if it's underneath this floor, contact us for permission and stuff. But, you know, as far as like get all the money, yeah, that's usually up to them on how to go about it. And they usually use the courts to do that, right? So if you are dealing with a collection law firm on an Upstart account, definitely schedule time with me. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to give you legal advice, but I can tell you the math of that particular situation, how to drag it out, how to get more time, how to potentially use some tips and tools to negotiate with that law firm, right? Post-judgment debt can even be negotiated. I've been doing that since the beginning of my career. These are not good settlements, the stuff that you get from judgments or from active litigation, although I'll take that back. Some active litigation can settle pretty favorably, but they're not as good as if you had settled usually before it got that far. So that's my encouragement, is to, if you've got an Upstart loan that you can't afford to pay, do not lose sight of that account. Don't ignore mail and email. Open everything Upstart sends you. What if they send you an offer? One of the biggest marketplace lenders that ever existed in this country were complete jerks about collection in every way, using attorneys, only attorneys. Like if you didn't pay them after a certain time, you can expect to hear from Zwicker and Associates, a collection law firm, right? And now, you know, new personnel, new realities, new economy, and they're sending mailed offers, email, like really good settlements. What if Upstart starts doing that, right? Don't ignore your mail from your creditor. Don't ignore your mail from a debt collection agency or a debt buyer or a law firm, because it telegraphs their intention. And if you have the capacity to put a plan together to head off some kind of, you know, things just getting out of control and a law firm suing you, getting a judgment, and you live in a state where your wages can be garnished and 25% of your take-home pay doesn't even exist anymore until that judgment gets paid off because they garnished it right from the source, right from your employer. A few states don't allow that, but most do, right? Lien against your home, bank account levy. That's all preventable by just some forward thought, preparedness, planning, if the math works. And I can do the math with you. If you want to talk about it in the comments or privately one-on-one, schedule that phone call. See you on the next video.